A demon soul isn't a standard term, but here are common interpretations. In the video game Demon's Souls, and its remake, it's a boss soul item used for crafting weapons, spells, or upgrades. In occult fantasy lore, it could mean a demonic entity's soul or a human soul possessed corrupted by demons. In World of Warcraft, the demon's soul is a powerful artifact created by Deathwing. Taboo topics in government often include classified info like UFO sightings as per recent DNI statements, corruption and lobbying influence, foreign policy failures e.g., specific China relations, and sensitive social issues like religion or personal finances in official discussions. These are rarely openly debated due to political risks. I'd be happy to share some fascinating haunting tales from different cultures. Each tradition has unique perspectives on the paranormal and taboo subjects. French. The Dame Blanche White Lady legends tell of ghostly women in white who appear on roads and bridges, often seeking justice for wrongs done to them in life. These tales often involve forbidden love or family secrets. English. The Tower of London's many ghost stories include Anne Boleyn, who appears headless, and the princes in the tower. English folklore is rich with tales of spirits bound by unfinished business or tragic deaths. Spanish. La Llorona, the weeping woman, is found throughout Spanish-speaking cultures. A mother who drowned her children and now eternally searches for them, warning of the consequences of jealousy and rage. German. Germanic folklore includes the Naxxerer, spirits of those who died unnaturally and returned to drain life from the living, often family members. These tales explore themes of guilt and unresolved family trauma. Korean. Korean ghost stories often feature wonryo, vengeful spirits of women who died unjustly. The tale of Arung, a magistrate's daughter murdered for refusing advances, who returns to seek justice, is particularly haunting. Chinese. Hungry ghosts in Chinese tradition are spirits trapped between worlds due to unfulfilled desires or improper burial rites, representing the importance of honoring ancestors and family obligations. Greek. Ancient Greek tales of the Vrikalakas, undead beings created when someone dies in sin or without proper rites, explore themes of moral transgression and spiritual consequences. Swedish. Scandinavian Draugr are undead beings who guard their burial mounds, representing the fear of disturbing the dead and respecting ancient burial grounds. Romanian. Beyond Dracula, Romanian folklore includes strigoi, troubled spirits of the dead who return due to unfinished business, often involving family secrets or broken promises. These tales often serve as cultural warnings about respecting the dead, honoring family obligations, and the consequences of moral transgressions. The Garden of Eden, from the Bible's book of Genesis, was a paradise created by God where he placed the first humans, Adam and Eve. It contained the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which God commanded them not to eat from. Tempted by a serpent, Eve ate the fruit and shared it with Adam, granting them awareness of good and evil, shame over nakedness, and resulting in their expulsion from the garden to prevent eternal life from the tree of life. This story symbolizes the origin of sin and human morality. The most famous ancient slave uprising was the Third Servile War 73 to 71 BC, led by Spartacus. It began with 70 gladiators escaping a school in Capua, arming themselves with kitchen tools. Their force grew to 120,000, raiding towns, defeating Roman legions with tactics like vine ropes for flanking. Romans crushed it with 8 legions under Crassus, crucifying 6,000 survivors along the Appian Way. Historically, enslaved people in the USA, forcibly transported from Africa, primarily worked in agriculture, planting and harvesting cotton, tobacco, rice, and sugar. Other roles included domestic service, construction of roads and railroads, mining, lumber, and skilled trades like blacksmithing and carpentry. Some in northern factories before abolition. Modern-day slavery affects migrant workers through forced labor, often via human trafficking or debt bondage. Common conditions include passport confiscation, excessive work hours up to 18/day, substandard housing, withheld wages, physical/sexual abuse, and isolation. Per ILO, 27.6 million people are impacted globally, with migrants 3x more at risk. Walk-free examples: Gulf states kafala system, U.S. farms, and Asian fishing fleets. History of slavery across civilizations. Ancient civilizations. 3500 BCE, Mesopotamia first recorded instances of slavery in Sumerian city-states. Slaves were prisoners of war, debtors, or born into slavery. 2600 BCE, Egypt, slavery integral to pyramid construction and agricultural work. Hebrew enslavement documented in biblical accounts. 800 BCE, Greece, chattel slavery system developed. Slaves comprised 30 to 40% of population in Athens. 500 BCE, Rome, massive slave economy. Estimated 2 to 3 million slaves in Roman Empire at peak. Medieval period. Viking Age 793-1066 CE, Vikings conducted extensive slave raids across Europe. Slaves called thralls were central to Norse society. Islamic world, 7th to 19th centuries, trans-Saharan and Indian Ocean slave trades. Estimated 17 million Africans enslaved over 1,300 years. Medieval Europe. Serfdom replaced slavery. Peasants bound to land but had some legal protections. Atlantic slave trade 1441 to 1888. Supernatural beings and angelic hierarchies. Christian angelic hierarchy. First sphere closest to God. Seraphim, six-winged beings of purification. Cherubim, guardians of divine glory. Thrones, wheels of divine justice. Second sphere, heavenly governors. Dominions, divine leadership. Virtues, miracles and natural laws. Powers, spiritual warfare. Third sphere, earthly messengers. Principalities, nations and rulers. Archangels, major divine messages. Angels, individual guidance. Cross-cultural supernatural beings. Greek mythology. Daimons, intermediary spirits between gods and humans. Nymphs, nature spirits of trees, water, mountains.
Slavery impacted Ireland's economy in varied ways historically. In medieval times, Viking-era slave trading in Dublin boosted local trade hubs. During the transatlantic era, 17th to 19th centuries, Irish merchants profited from slave-produced goods like sugar and tobacco, reinvesting wealth into ports like Belfast, funding businesses and infrastructure. Indirectly, as part of the British Empire, Ireland benefited from empire-wide slave-based commerce, though involvement was not as central as in Britain. During the Viking Age, 9th to 12th centuries, Dublin was a major hub for the slave trade in Western Europe. Vikings captured slaves from Ireland, Britain, and beyond, selling them in Dublin's market to buyers in Scandinavia, Iceland, and even Muslim Spain. Historical sources, like those from Britannica and medieval records, describe it as one of Europe's largest slave markets at the time, fueled by raids and warfare. St. Patrick, born around 386 AD in Roman Britain, was kidnapped at age 16 by Irish raiders and enslaved in Ireland. He spent 6 years herding sheep on Mount Slemish, using the time for prayer and reflection. He eventually escaped, returned home, became a bishop, and went back to Ireland as a missionary. This is detailed in his autobiography, The Confessio. Slavery in Ireland existed since ancient Gaelic times, with captives from raids or debts becoming slaves under Brehon laws. Status could be hereditary but sometimes improvable. Vikings made Dublin Europe's largest slave market, trading Irish, Welsh, and Scots to places like Iceland and Spain. Ireland had minor direct role in transatlantic trade due to British restrictions, but Irish merchants supplied slave colonies, and some owned slaves abroad. Irish sent to Americas were often indentured servants, time-limited labor, not hereditary chattel slaves like Africans. He converted many to Christianity, using the shamrock to explain the Trinity. He died around 461 AD, March 17th marks his feast day. Uriel is an archangel in Jewish, Christian, and some esoteric traditions. The name means God is my light, or fire of God in Hebrew. He's often associated with wisdom, illumination, prophecy, and guarding Eden with a fiery sword. In some texts, he brings divine knowledge and justice. Even in historical accounts of American slavery, a well-treated slave, often a house servant or skilled artisan, might have lived in better quarters like a cabin or attic room, with access to the owner's leftover food, decent clothing, and lighter indoor work, e.g. cooking, childcare. However, they remained property, subject to sale, family separation, and arbitrary punishment, with no legal rights or freedom. Examples of modern-day slavery include forced labor in global supply chains, e.g., agriculture, mining in countries like Eritrea and North Korea, sex trafficking, debt bondage in South Asia, domestic servitude under systems like kafala in Gulf states, and forced marriages. Reports estimate over 50 million affected worldwide as of 2025. By definition, slaves were forced to perform labor without receiving wages or monetary compensation, though they were often provided minimal sustenance to survive. In various human cultures, forest taboos often include avoiding sacred groves, e.g., in African traditions like Cameroon's Ek forests, not cutting spirit-inhabited trees, Celtic or Japanese folklore, or hunting totem animals, e.g., elephants in some communities. These stem from beliefs in spirits or conservation needs, with violations seen as inviting misfortune. In angelic traditions, the guardian of fire in the south is typically Archangel Michael, associated with protection and truth. Uriel is usually linked to the north and earth, focusing on wisdom and illumination. Sources vary slightly, but this is the common association. Here are some fairy tales featuring witches turning people into animals. The Frog Prince to Frog by a Wicked Witch. Beauty and the Beast prince to beast by an enchantress. The wild swans brothers to swans by an evil queen's witchcraft. Brother and sister boy to fawn by a stepmother witch. Jorund and Jorangel maidens to birds by a witch. Taboo Moon Magazine. As of August 2025, key global developments include U.S. Army deploying Dark Eagle hypersonic missile by FY-end, advances in AI warfare, autonomous drones and exoskeletons. China, unveiling anti-ship missiles, hypersonics, new tanks, and fighters at September 3rd parade. Russia, modernizing RS-28 Sarmat ICBMs and Circon hypersonics, nuclear torpedo progress. Emerging trends, AI robotics, space defenses, and cybersecurity. Sources, National Defense Magazine, Al Jazeera, Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. Superstitions and legends about the woods. Witches. Witch circles, rings of mushrooms, fairy rings, are believed to be places where witches gather or dance. Cursed trees. Certain trees, like the yew or willow, are thought to be inhabited or used by witches for rituals. Witch's cottage. Deep woods are often said to hide witches' homes, as in Hansel and Gretel. Hexed paths. Some believe that if you stray from the path, you could fall under a witch's spell. Fairy tales. Don't eat wild berries. Many tales warn that berries in the woods could be enchanted or poisonous. Talking animals. Animals in the forest may be magical or bewitched, sometimes acting as guides or tricksters. Lost forever. Getting lost in the woods is a common theme, with the belief that the forest can keep those who disrespect it. Beware of the old woman. Meeting an old woman in the woods often signals a test or a magical encounter. Paranormal. Will-o'-the-wisps. Mysterious lights that lead travelers astray, believed to be spirits or supernatural beings. Phantom footsteps. Hearing footsteps behind you with no one there is a sign of spirits or ghosts. Time slips. Some believe that certain forest areas can cause people to lose time or enter another realm. Shadow figures. Dark, human-like shapes seen in the woods are thought to be spirits or entities. Ghosts. Haunted trees. Some trees are believed to be haunted by the spirits of those who died nearby. Crying in the night. Hearing crying or wailing in the woods is often attributed to restless spirits. Ghostly campfires. Seeing a fire in the distance that disappears when approached is a common ghost story. Spirit paths. Certain trails are believed to be spirit roads where ghosts travel at night. General forest superstitions. Never whistle at night. Whistling in the woods after dark is said to attract evil spirits. Leave offerings. Some traditions say to leave bread, milk or coins to appease forest spirits. Don't look back. If you feel you're being followed, don't look back or you might see something you shouldn't. Mark your path. Always mark your way, as the forest is believed to shift and confuse those who enter. Types of dragons that live in the woods. Forest dragons. Green or brown scales for camouflage. Often have leafy or mossy growths on their bodies. Masters of blending in with trees and foliage. Woodland WYRMS. Serpentine, wingless dragons that slither through undergrowth. Known for their wisdom and connection to ancient trees. Mossback dragons. Covered in moss, lichen, and sometimes even small plants. Move slowly and are often mistaken for fallen logs or boulders. Grove drakes. Smaller, agile dragons that make their homes in groves or thickets. Known for their playful nature and ability to disappear quickly. Bramble serpents. Dragons with thorny scales or spines. Dwell in dense, thorny underbrush and use their bodies to create tunnels. Sylvan wyverns. Two-legged, winged dragons that nest in the tallest trees. Excellent flyers, often seen gliding between the canopy. Shadow dragons. Dark-colored dragons that thrive in the dim, shadowy parts of the forest. Masters of stealth and illusion. Fey dragons. Small, magical dragons associated with fairies and woodland spirits. Often brightly colored and mischievous. Root-bound dragons. Ancient dragons that rarely move, their bodies intertwined with tree roots. Said to be guardians of the forest's oldest secrets. Mist drakes. Dragons that create or control mist and fog in the woods. Use the mist to hide themselves and their lairs.
Religious perspectives on music. Christianity. Some strict Protestant denominations like certain Baptist or Pentecostal groups historically avoided instrumental music in worship, preferring only vocal hymns. Orthodox traditions embraced chanting and liturgical music as sacred. Catholic traditions developed Gregorian chant and rich musical liturgies. Gothic cathedral music became central to worship. Islam. Views vary widely. Some interpretations discourage instrumental music, while others embrace it. Sufi traditions use music and chanting for spiritual connection. Call to prayer adhan is a form of melodic chanting. Judaism generally embraces music in worship and celebration. Cantoral traditions are central to synagogue services. Some ultra-Orthodox groups have restrictions on secular music. Cultural attitudes by region. European traditions. French, rich musical heritage, generally very accepting. German, strong classical tradition, music highly valued culturally. Ukrainian, Russian, deep choral and folk music traditions, though Soviet era had some restrictions on religious music. East Asian perspectives. Chinese, traditional music valued, though Cultural Revolution temporarily restricted some forms. Japanese, music integral to culture, gagaku, court music, traditional instruments. Korean, strong musical traditions in both traditional and contemporary forms. Musical styles and chanting. Sacred chanting. Gregorian chant, Catholic. Buddhist chanting. Hindu mantras. Islamic dhikr. Jewish cantillation. Most restrictions historically came from concerns about music's emotional power or associations with secular activities, rather than music itself being inherently problematic. Today, most cultures celebrate music as an important art form. Microsoft. Taboos are actions or behaviors that are considered inappropriate or forbidden within a cultural group. Here are some examples of taboos. Cultural taboos: actions like touching someone's hair without permission or desecrating national symbols. Religious taboos: certain dietary restrictions, such as not eating pork in Islam or Judaism. Social taboos: topics like discussing personal finances or politics in casual settings. Food taboos: eating certain animals or food items that are considered sacred or unclean in various cultures. American taboos: not tipping service workers or discussing infidelity openly. These examples illustrate how taboos can vary widely across different cultures and societies. She has been appointed by God to be the Queen of heaven and earth, and is exalted above all the choirs of angels and saints, and even stands at the right hand of her only begotten Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. She presents our petitions in a most efficacious manner. What she asks, she obtains. Her pleas can never be unheard, bless Pope Pius IX.